Hello once again everybody, it's Chris Bezanoy or Chris B with CSB Security Inc. and another informative video. Today we're going to talk about video surveillance systems for any cannabis production facility in Canada, but also any cannabis production facility anywhere in the world. Before I move forward, what I'm about to tell you is based on my experience. It's based on dealing with a whole bunch of Health Canada RMIs, over 420 compliance security system designs, not only for applicants in Canada, but now all over the world. Nonetheless, it's based on my opinion. Of course, your opinions and experiences may vary. So we're going to get into the reason why you need video surveillance, not only for any cannabis facility in Canada, but now all over the world. The reason you need video surveillance is for incident investigation purposes only. I know it's a very bold statement because some people argue, well, video surveillance cameras are a deterrent. Well, we find that to be not necessarily true. Yes, maybe somebody looking at a camera and seeing it installed on a wall could be enough to deter them to do something silly, but let's face it. Nowadays, you could put a hoodie on. You could put a hat on. You could just use different colored jackets and maybe circumvent the cameras by turning your back. Doesn't change the fact that cameras nowadays are not so much as a deterrent as an investigative tool. And so when you install a camera inside of your facility or on the perimeter of your facility, you're going to want to put those cameras in strategic locations that give you ideal images in both day and night, light and dark situations to help you with incident investigation. In other words, if somebody does something bad in your facility, you want to be able to go back and review those video images, figure out what that person did, why they did it, how they did it, not only to prove that they did it, but also to give you ammunition to be able to study how they did it and stop it from happening in the future. Here's an example. Imagine if your facility was broken into and some product was stolen. You go back and look at that video surveillance system and figure out, well, the person busted in through the front door, they went in through another corridor, they went in through the change room, they went into the main entrance, got into the dry room, stole some product, and then went out emergency exit at the back of the dry room. Yes, you may have gotten alarms being sent off, but at least you now have video backup of how the person got in the facility, how easy it was, how long it took them, and maybe that gives you enough information to reinforce the front door. Maybe now you create a man trap or airlock situation in your front door where you have to go through two doors, at which point you've got delay for anybody getting to the product to be stolen. Nonetheless, video surveillance systems are investigative tools only. Yes, there are some video analytics that cameras can use. Maybe there's motion detection. Maybe there's tripwire. I do talk about that in another video. Nonetheless, for these applications, and of course in any cannabis facility in Canada and all over the world, you still want to use that video surveillance camera and that system as an investigative tool. Currently on the market today, there are a ton of video surveillance platforms. Some do well in the cannabis industry based on the environment that these cameras are installed in, and some don't do so well. There are different camera technologies that you can apply to any situation. There are 90-degree cameras, there are 180-degree cameras, 360-degree cameras, pan-tilt zoom cameras. There are 5-megapixel cameras, 3-megapixel cameras, up to 15-megapixel cameras. There are thermal cameras, IR illuminated cameras. There are any number of technology that you can throw at your facility to make it compliant. Doesn't necessarily mean that these cameras are bad, and it doesn't necessarily mean that these cameras are good. Here's an example. If you only have PTZ cameras or pan-tilt zoom cameras in your facility, and you've got those cameras that are configured for what we call tracking motion or on a video tour, meaning the camera pans back and forth automatically on a set schedule to be able to give you viewing of, let's say, a fence line. Well, that camera is probably configured so that if an alarm goes off, the camera automatically moves to the location where the alarm was. It sounds great in theory, but what if you get two alarms going off and that one camera is tasked with viewing two alarms at the same time? For a PTZ situation, that means that camera is panning back and forth constantly because it doesn't know exactly which way to go, but it also doesn't know which thing to track. What I'm basically getting at is if you have somebody breaking into your fence line on the north side and on the east side, how's that PTZ camera going to be able to view both at the same time? Those are challenges involving PTZ cameras, but there are also challenges involving, let's say, 360-degree cameras. We're talking fisheye cameras that maybe are installed in your dry room. Again, it sounds great in theory. You could take a look at the video surveillance system and go, hey, I could see everything from the top down in my rooms, around racks, around tables, and that sort of thing. However, be mindful, if that camera goes down, if that imager inside that camera, if it's only using one imager, goes down, you've actually lost 5 cameras or 5 lenses that are not viewing anything anymore. So therefore, do you need to shut down that room, get that camera replaced because you have no other optics into that room? It is a challenge, and it's something you have to be mindful of when it comes to video surveillance platforms and, of course, video surveillance systems. Now, the example of things you need to watch out for, cameras come in different models, makes and models, but also different housing. There's what's called dome cameras or bullet cameras. The dome cameras are basically that. It has a dome over the lens. It could be either a smoked dome or a clear glass dome. And the idea is that it protects the camera lens. But there's also bullet cameras. Bullet cameras do protect the lenses, but they're not dome cameras. They have a hood over the lens to ensure there's no ice buildup and, of course, rain or condensation. Doesn't mean that either one is bad. It just means either one is better suited for certain locations and certain environments in your facility. As an example, you don't necessarily need to use a bullet camera inside of a dry room, but you may want to use a bullet camera on the exterior because it has that hood and no ice will build up on the lens. There are different cameras that can operate in different temperatures. Potentially, you could be in Saskatchewan as an example, or northern Russia as an example. And you could have minus 40-degree weather. Well, cameras do come with specifications to let you know what they operate as, ideally, and what temperatures. Most cameras are minus 30. But if your environment has tons and tons of snow and lots of ice rain and lots of ice buildup and it's minus 40 sometimes, you're going to want a camera that can withstand that kind of temperature. When it comes to options with video surveillance systems, they do come with analytics. Some want you to be able to detect motion and will set off an alarm should motion be detected. Some you can have a recording at 1 frame a second, and when the camera detects motion, it ramps up the recording rates to 15, 20, or even 30 frames a second. These are all healthy things to have in a video surveillance system. But other options you may not need. I do another video where I talk about overkill, and as an example, your video surveillance may have the ability to detect when somebody walks the wrong way down your front entrance. Maybe it detects when a car goes out the in and in the out gate. Maybe it detects when somebody walks around your facility, even though they may just be having a smoke. Go ahead and watch that other video. It's called Overkill. I do get into that in a little bit more depth. Nonetheless, is that a requirement? Absolutely not. Are PTZ cameras wise for your exterior to cover a fence line? Potentially. But are you setting yourself up for a bad situation when there's multiple alarms? Not only that, but usually PTZ cameras, the one thing that goes on a PTZ camera is the motor, because that motor is constantly moving. You may find in 5 years that camera no longer moves, and now all you've got is a stationary, expensive camera. I touched on before that cameras come in different megapixels. There's 2, there's 4, there's 5, there's 10, there's 15, and of course the price goes up depending on the camera technology that you use. We find that 2 megapixel cameras are a good place to start. We often find that 2 megapixel cameras have ideal images. Health Canada's reviewed them. They don't mind them. They tend to like them. Doesn't mean you can't use a 5 megapixel camera. It just means, is it worth the cost? Potentially, you can get 2 fixed 2 megapixel cameras in a dry room for the cost of 1 5 megapixel fixed camera. Why not do 2 cameras instead of 1? 1 is 1 point of failure. 2, you've got overlapping views. If one camera goes down, it's backed up by another camera. When it comes to video surveillance systems, you also want to make sure your preventative maintenance is intact. In other words, you want to have an agreement with your security system installer that states, hey, if a camera goes down, you're going to know about it because it's going to send a signal or an alarm. You're going to show up on site within 12 or 24 hours, and you're going to replace that camera. You're not going to take it down. You're not going to try to fix it, try to deal with circuit boards. You're just going to replace the camera. That is key to making sure a video surveillance system operates optimally and make sure that you have no downtime. Another thing you may want to consider is potentially you want to have some cameras on site. So when you when you hire a security contractor, you say, listen, thanks for installing my system. I wish to purchase 5 more identical cameras so that if something goes down, either I could fix it myself, or when you come out to site, we don't have to worry about you having to stock your van full of video surveillance cameras. We don't want to run the risk of maybe you don't have video surveillance cameras in stock, and now we have to wait 2 weeks to get one shipped in. Some people have opted to actually buy extra equipment and store it on site in case a video surveillance system goes down, or access control, or intrusion detection for that matter. Doesn't change the fact that video surveillance is even more important than it ever has been. Yes, the regulations have eased up a bit in video surveillance cameras in, let's say, cultivation rooms. You no longer need cameras inside of cultivation rooms. It doesn't change the fact that it's still very important. If you do have cameras inside of your facility that are considered to be compliance cameras, those are cameras you need to show Health Canada in your evidence package that they are good to go. You have to give them a video export of day and night, lights on, lights off situations, somebody walking around the area. Health Canada wants to make sure those cameras are giving ideal images. If you have any cameras that are considered business decision cameras, we're talking inside cultivation spaces, you don't need to attest to those. We don't need to show Health Canada how those cameras operate, nor do you have to have them record for a minimum of 1 year. Compliance cameras have to record for a minimum of 1 year. Business decision cameras don't have to record at all if you don't want them to. We recommend 30 days just in case, but it is a business decision camera. Make sure you tell Health Canada which ones are business decision and which ones are compliance. As I mentioned before, there are tons of offerings out there. There are popular systems that work well in this industry, or any industry for that matter, but it doesn't mean you can't find an equivalent system that does just as well for a bit of a cheaper price. I caution you, I would not just rush out to go to Best Buy and pick up the best camera system they have to offer. That's probably not going to work for you, and it's not going to work very well in the environment. You do want a higher end system that has redundancy. I'm not talking server redundancy. I do talk about that in my overkill video, but it does have redundancy. It can record at high resolution rates. It maybe has some optimization involved. It could do health monitoring, which means you set off an alarm should a camera go down. Any number of things that you may want it to do. I would recommend you go for a higher end system that has been proven in this space, that is backed up by great preventative maintenance, and also is backed up by the manufacturer. Be careful with any systems that you may buy off the shelf or maybe overseas. If that system doesn't work the way you want, is there somebody available to talk to in case the system is not operating? Maybe your security installer understands how to install the system but doesn't understand why it does certain things. If you try to get a hold of somebody and you've purchased a camera system overseas, is there going to be a language barrier? Do they have Canadian representation? Are you going to be able to get the answers that you need? These are all concerns when it comes to video surveillance systems. Nonetheless, there are cameras that are used in certain situations. Be mindful of those. Better ones for exterior, better ones for interior. There are good manufacturers and bad manufacturers, good options, bad options, good programming and bad programming. Keep in mind when you do your video hosted attestation or your evidence package, you need to show Health Canada floor plans of where those cameras are located, but also video exports. You're going to want to make sure the cameras that are labeled on your drawings match the labels inside of your video surveillance system. But you're going to want to make sure those video surveillance system camera labels are ideal and they actually work for where the camera is intended to view. If you have any video surveillance systems that you want us to take a look at, go ahead, send us an email. We review tons of quotes and of course proposals. We can give our opinions on which ones we find are better suited for the environment, which ones may not be good, which options are good, which options are bad. Of course, we design these systems ourselves to be compliant with the regulations, but also industry best practices without having overkill. Nonetheless, it's Chris Besanoy, Chris B, CSB Security Inc. We do these videos all the time. I mentioned an overkill video that I did. Go ahead and watch it. This is all post October 17th, 2019 and applicable to any cannabis facility in the world because video surveillance systems generally run the same way no matter where the facility is located. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.